My name is Francoise Stovall. I'm with Every Voice. I'm the digital director, and I'm here today with Warwick Sabin.
My name is Warwick Sabin. I'm the state representative for District 33, which is in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's actually all of downtown Little Rock and the neighborhoods just west of there. And in my other professional life, I direct a nonprofit called the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. And I've been in the legislature just 2 years. I'm in my first term, but I was recently reelected for my second term. And very glad to be with you, Francoise.
So if you want to tell us a little bit about Issue 3, what it is, what it will do now that it's been passed.
Absolutely. Issue 3 started actually as a series of 3 bills that I introduced right when I entered the legislature in January of 2013. And the first bill proposed to ban all corporate contributions to political campaigns in Arkansas. The second bill banned all gifts from lobbyists to elected officials, including down to a cup of coffee. We call it the Walmart rule because Walmart, which is the largest corporation in the world and happens to be headquartered in Arkansas, does not allow its buyers to accept even a cup of coffee from one of its vendors. And so it obviously keeps their business in very good shape, and we thought that's a good principle to bring to government as well. And finally, the third bill would extend the cooling off period from being a legislator to being a lobbyist from 1 year to 2 years. And so those 3 bills didn't get a lot of traction when I first introduced them. And so later on in the session, I bundled them together as a constitutional amendment proposal. And to make a very long story short, made some compromises with my colleagues to include a couple of other provisions. But it made it onto the ballot. It was one of 3 constitutional amendments that the legislature was allowed to refer to the voters in 2013. And it appeared on the ballot in 2014, and it passed with 53% of the vote statewide. And so as of the day after Election Day, those ethics provisions I described to you went into effect. They've already had a profound impact on the culture as well as the reality of how business is done at the state capitol. And so as of right now, no corporations can contribute to campaigns. No lobbyists can buy anything for elected officials, and we've just extended that cooling off period.
You mentioned that it's already having a profound effect on the culture and the day-to-day business. How will citizens see a difference in their government from this bill?
Well, for a very long time, the lobbyists were able to get a lot done at the Capitol for particular interests because of the relationships they developed with legislators that in many instances were quid pro quo relationships. Even if a legislator wants to resist the temptation to do what a lobbyist wants them to do just because they've purchased them a meal or a drink or tickets to an event, over time it becomes very difficult to do that. When that's happening day to day. And that's now ending, and that means lobbyists have to come to terms with the fact that their business is going to have to be conducted in the old-fashioned way, which is to educate elected officials and persuade them based on information and the merits of their arguments. And the truth is there are a lot of lobbyists that already were doing that. And this levels the playing field for those lobbyists and allows them to have the same shot at making their case with legislators as those who were purchasing things for them. And then finally, when it comes to those of us as citizens here in Arkansas, now we know that our voice is a little bit more likely to be heard as well, because we're not competing again with people who have unlimited checkbooks to purchase things for our elected officials. And so I think that increases confidence in the integrity of our government, and it increases transparency and accountability as well.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the campaign, how it started, and how it went throughout the course of campaign season?
There really wasn't much of a campaign. I passed this thing through the legislature in order to get it onto the ballot. But those who had money and influence wanted to see it fail. And quite frankly, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars spent to defeat this amendment, whereas there was not a penny spent to advocate for it. And I certainly spent my time visiting civic clubs and community groups and neighborhood associations, and I answered questions about the amendment, and I talked about it, and of course talked about it with the media, but it was a grassroots campaign for it, and I wasn't really sure it was going to pass. But somehow we overcame the opposition, which had purchased television advertising statewide against it. They did mailers against it. They had signs out, billboards all over the state trying to beat the measure. But it did pass, and for that I'm really grateful.
That's actually a pretty incredible story, especially with that onslaught of money. I'm wondering if you see any lessons for other reform campaigns in that, how other members of the reform community can fight back against this avalanche of money that we're often facing.
Well, what I do think this experience teaches us is that the citizens of Arkansas, as well as around the nation, are very interested in these kinds of reforms. I think regardless of political ideology or party affiliation, people think there's too much money in government. They think it's distorting the process. They know that the government isn't working for them, and in fact it's being manipulated when the vast amounts of money and corporate influence is allowed to go unchecked. And so, just to put a measure like this on the ballot and have it pass with 53% of the vote in the face of tremendous opposition means that I think that we're ripe for more reform. I think that we can try additional efforts and try to do even more. One of the criticisms that I've gotten since the measure passed was that it didn't go far enough. And I thought it went pretty far, and a lot of people here, certainly the critics of it who didn't want it to pass, think it certainly went too far. So there's a lot more work to do, and I think we just need to try. And even the measure I passed, I was able to get bipartisan support to get it through the legislature, and I was only a first-term member of the House of Representatives in the minority party and got this thing onto the ballot. And so again, that speaks to the fact that there's a lot of support for this if we can just break through the tremendous amounts of money that try to go against these kinds of reforms.
So when you were speaking to voters, when you were going to community associations, what did you find? What was the message that you were saying, or what was that sort of aha moment for them where they felt like this was powerful, this was possible, this was something that really made sense to them?
Well, for a lot of people, I think it was very intuitive. I mean, there were people who didn't know that it was already legal for lobbyists to buy things for elected officials. And certainly when it comes to corporate contributions to political campaigns, I think that people didn't realize how pernicious that had become. We had an instance here in Arkansas just in this election cycle where a person who owned nursing homes around the state was able to use all of the different LLCs and different corporate entities that he controlled to direct tens of thousands of dollars to particular political candidates that he wanted to support. And I think when you have money that big, people understand that there's something that person is expecting in return. And it's suspicious when somebody wants to spend that much money on particular candidates. And so knowing that the ban on corporate contributions would end that kind of practice, I think was a very, very powerful message. And so it's not like it took a lot to persuade people. All you need to do is illustrate the reality through examples and stories and just explaining to people how the process works day to day at the state capitol. And then all of a sudden people understand that they want to see that kind of thing end.
So you mentioned that a lot of people thought it didn't go far enough. So the next question is, what's next? Will there be a follow-up to this? What's next for you and for this issue?
Sure. Well, the first order of business is I'll be introducing some of the rules and regs that will govern the implementation of this amendment, as well as giving the Ethics Commission in Arkansas jurisdiction to enforce it. But that's really more technical. I think one of the things that we'd like to do here in Arkansas is we'd like to give the Ethics Commission more resources and more power to be proactive, because right now the Ethics Commission doesn't have a lot of staff, doesn't have a lot of resources, and their mission really is more on a reactive basis. They respond to complaints rather than proactively examining campaign finance reports and looking for discrepancies. And so I think that if we could empower the Ethics Commission further, that would do a lot to ensure that the laws we have on the books are actually being abided by. Another thing that we could do here, and I'd like to try to do, is make campaign finance process more transparent by creating an online database that's searchable. Right now, campaign finance reports can be filed in paper form, and then they're scanned into the system, and then even if they're filed digitally, they're not searchable. So anybody who's really looking for patterns and trying to learn more about how campaigns are financed, it's a very long, tedious process where one has to just go through each report one by one, looking for names and patterns and things like that. So there's a lot of improvement that we could make very easily. The technology exists. The technology that you and I are using right now is probably more advanced than anything we have right now governing our Ethics Commission website or our Secretary of State's website. So I think those are two very, very easy things that we could do right away.